Well, this is going to be, it's 6 after, so I think I can keep an eye on people coming in. This is going to be a looser kind of day because we're just going to be kind of talking broadly about the ideas for how to do some interesting formatting that may be a little bit easier and a little lower tech. And for those who don't necessarily want to go like with Illustrator or Photoshop or something a little more elaborate. Plus, it's also just generally concepting a little bit on how you can kind of start and a little bit of a look backwards too, because each of the people that are going to talk about how they think about creating zines, and you can talk about whatever you really want to, has already been in the Zine Swap. So I do have images that I took of your zines that I can share. You can screen share as well if you've chosen to make something of that sort. But basically, we're just trying to give each other some fun ideas and touch base about making zines for the summer. So this is our 4th year. Yay! Very exciting. Some of us have done all 3 and some have just done 1 or 2, which is fine. I think that's the beauty of a swap of this nature, is you can decide whether you want to join or not. But I think we're gaining some steam, and I think societally, and I think Nancer and Lori will also agree with this, that we're seeing more people zining out there, right? Don't you seem to see like more zine workshops and fairs and people getting it seems like it's getting a little more, out there, which I kind of like.
People are talking about them.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they're a great tool, both at the educational kind of 0 to 12. I mean, pre-K to 12, but also college and beyond, because it's something where you can be very condensed and be very technical if you want to go concept wise, but also it's only depending on your structure, it's only 6 to 12 pages. So it's not over intimidating to people.
Yeah. I agree.
So it feels like a great entry level, but when you know more about it, there's so much flexibility. You can really take it pretty high, pretty in different directions too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start screen sharing with a few images from previous times. And when your images pop up, just to go through these slides, I'll let you be spotlighted alongside, and you can talk about your zines as we go. And anybody who has questions, when there's a pause in the action, feel free to go ahead and chat a little bit. So let me get the screen share. Our first swap was in 2020, and I started talking, I think, at the beginning of June, and our deadline to turn in the PDF and a digital email to NEBA or myself would be September the 15th. And sometimes when we get close to September the 15th, we need to extend it a little. So sometimes we've extended it by 2 weeks just to kind of give you a little buffer. And sometimes it was like 2 months. So, it depends, I guess, on when people get it done, they get it done. But I'd love to get this year's done definitely by September 15th. Because, roll the drums, we have a zine show in the Brookline Public Library at Coolidge Corner in the cases for November. All of November, we will be displaying all of our zines in these cases. So if you want to be in the show, we need to have our completed box set and everything done by then. And I'm going to be announcing the show in the July 1 newsletter, so that everybody, I'm coming up with a cool logo. Carolyn Letman and I came up with the idea of calling the show the Zine Scene, but spelled S-E-E-N instead of S-C-E-N-E. Zine Scene. It's going to be cool. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Anyway, so there's not really a whole lot that everyone has to do to have this show, which is kind of nice because we already have 3 box sets made and plenty of good copies of these zines. So just the new set we'll really need to add. So that's kind of fun to have that. So the swap is all about being consistent so that they fit in a nice box set. So we're limiting the structure. this is the wrong window. Let me pull up a different window. How about this window? Here we go. Yeah, this is a better window to share. Okay, so these are the basic structures of our zine swap here. We do all themes, so you can make up a zine that's visual. It could be text. It could be whatever theme you want. They're all going to be printed on black and white copy paper or Xerox paper. We're swapping it as a PDF, so you don't actually have to make a bunch and mail them. So this ends up being a free kind of interaction, and it's lower key, and it just works really well to be a PDF swap. Everything's going to be in black and white. You could make a color version, but convert it in your PDF to black and white so that everybody gets a black and white zine. They're going to be 8.5 by 11. The work you're looking at right here is actually the PDF that you can print out. This is in the NEBA blog section, and I'll post this as well again and in the newsletter. But you can go back into the blog section to the earlier days of NEBA. So you would go back to something like page 9 or 10 backwards in the blog, because it kind of goes front to back, right, time-wise. So this is actually what the PDF looks like. And it's actually the guide on how to make your zine. So what we're doing, and you can see this in the bottom quadrant here on the left, we're making a zine that's the ox plow zine. It's also referred to as an X zine, a hot dog, a hamburger, a center cut accordion. So it's got a lot of different names, but it's a single sheet of paper that you cut. And this actually, folding it up, the actual PDF will give you a great template, teach you how to do it. And it's also one of our most sought after giveaway items when we have tables at zines and book fairs. We just have a big stack of these and we just hand them out, and we use them for whenever we do a zine workshop, and it's just a really good tool. Lori likes to change where the front cover is. So you'll see the little circles on the bottoms of these pages have numbers. You can just rearrange the numbers to put in number 8, number 1. I don't think it really matters, because you can fold it in different ways to get different pages to be the cover. But some people like to have it fold up. It folds up a little bit nicer. So I may decide, and I think I might just go ahead and make this decision, that I will redo this PDF moving forward to have page 1 be where make it and share it with NEBA. This number 8 becomes number 1. I just switch that around a little bit. So it'll go 1 and then 2 to the right, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is, I believe, how it goes. But anyway, I'll rearrange it so that it folds, because it does fold a little better, I think, to do it Lori's way. Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is our basic structure. This is what we're going to stick with, because it's the easiest way to do these zine swaps. I do think, though, especially Nancer has really come a long way with all these crazy different folds that fold up into exactly the same size, that she may share with us a little of some of these extra structures that she's done. But we're gonna, for our swap this time, so maybe thinking ahead, like maybe next summer we could open or change the structure potentially. So we're open to the idea of next year, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, so there's a lot of different ways to make zines, which is super cool. But this is what we're doing to keep it easy and keep it consistent so that we have a nice looking box set. If you look in this NEBA blog post, this is on the NEBA website, and it's like I said, it's way back on the, gotta keep scrolling backwards. It has here a really wonderful Susan Gaylord, who's one of our members and does a whole lot of really wonderful book videos on her YouTube channel. She has video footage here, 2 links. I love to look at how to do it our way, but I also really think this one underneath, using different size papers, is a good way to help you visualize, like, what if I used a square piece or a long thin piece before I folded it up? So it's the same structure, but with different ratios, which is kind of interesting. The ones that are flickering by here are technically very simple zines, but are really fun. The idea that you have to do a really super complicated zine is not really suggested. If it's going to be a bummer for you to design, go with something simple and fun and easier on yourself, right? I think some of my favorites are actually pretty simple. This blog post also covers the backstory of what a zine is exactly, as far as the history of it a little bit. There's obviously a deeper dive you could take on zines, and there's a whole lot of information out there on zines. I kind of, when I teach zines, like to center the idea on being a self-publishing idea a lot, because I feel like the people that have things to say or want to like scream and be angry or vent or promote something or advertise something or celebrate a passionate thing they collect, or that they like their cat or a memory or star. There's all kinds of ways to think about, like, why would you want to make these little zines? I think that for me, it's just a really fun, quick structure to do a little rant, put it out there, or to share sort of my visual obsessions, which I have in mushrooms. So you're going to see some of my mushroom zines and how you can jump off of an idea like mushrooms into more abstract kind of visuals that are easier to make in zine form, things like that. But really, for me, being in the Women's Caucus for the Art and being a feminist and doing a lot of body image related work as well, for me, it's more about the protest-esque like quality that a zine can have. So you can make something that's a little irreverent or a little angry. You can make them and leave them places and go like kamikaze with like how you distribute them. You can, totally freak out somebody's little free library that you come across by putting your weird zines in there. Yeah, they're just really fun and they do become addictive. So I'm really hoping that this year's swap is huge. You could do 2 entries if you wanted to. You could do a 2-sided entry. So you're going to see in some of our memberships some of the variety that people do. Here's a lady that I just love. She's an illustrator, Sarah Capello, and she just makes fun. They're just fun. They're not confrontational. So you don't have to be like, you can actually just do something that's fun. You don't have to go protest on it. But this covers a lot. It has the link to the old version of the PDF if you want to get a little head start. It's a good way to look at what happened previously. The 2020 swap was the first swap. And at the end of it, I took on the role that year to create the box housing. And I did a little pillow box. I thought it was cute, and when we made stickers, and it worked out well. But I find that as far as collecting a boxed set, it doesn't sit well. It doesn't go in your library well. It's cute, but it wasn't as effective, I don't think, as Susan Marsh's ones that she made on the next 2 years. So this year we will need to have a PDF version with instructions for a new box. So I'm hoping somebody that's in the swap will donate an idea. It could be something different, or it could be something similar. Hopefully it'd be maybe something different. But anyway, I have some images of the box housing of the other 2 years as well. But what I have typically been doing is, and I haven't completed this past year's all the way, but what I do as the zine mistress, so to speak, is what you would it's like a mistrix. You can put an X somewhere in there and like whoosh, make a whipping sound. I'm kind of the organizer and the one that pushes it forward. So zine mistress, I guess, is the best way to say it. I like to photograph the set with gray seamless, really simply, and I do some montage so that you get some different views into one big picture so that each person on the website can have their picture. We get a sentence or two from you about what the actual zine was about. And I just do it alphabetically and get a good show of all the zines for the website. So you're seeing here are all of the ones from the very first year. I did 2 versions. Yeah, Carolyn did 2 versions. Yeah, so you can see that it's a nice fun range of materials. I think when they print and fold, you have to just kind of play around some to see what is going to work the best and do like a few test runs. You may want to change contrast ranges or lighten or darken it up a little bit after you design it, after you test it. Sometimes you might have to adjust it. In this post, which, you know, since we're going chronologically, is somewhere around, I think, page 8 in the blog, like the blog section. Stephanie's was folded with what some people refer to as the pants structure. It's like cutting across 3 down the middle, so that it's like 2 long strips connected by one little area, and it was a horizontal. So she did hers a little teeny bit different and went off the rules a little bit, which I'm okay with. But she added a nice video for people to understand how to fold it and cut it, and a little dialogue. So she's got a nice video here in this post if you'd like to take a look at the pants structure. Yeah.
So, Cristina, can I interrupt 1 second?
Absolutely.
I think Ellen's question about defining a zine might be a really good thing to do right now, as opposed to talking about the structure. Just a general
Okay.
is about what the
I thought it's a very short definition, and I kind of thought I said that, but maybe I didn't. Zines are little self-published miniature magazines. So zine is short for magazine, and they've been around since the 40s and 50s in one form or another. And there's fanzine was maybe one of the most original kind of uses in popular culture, where you would like be in love with Howdy Doody or Robin Hood or Batman or whoever, and you'd make a little silly, fun little fanzine out of, you know, collage and writings about like a star or something you're really in love with. So zines are miniature magazines. They're usually Xeroxed or low-end copied versions. They can be made in a lot of different ways. They can be done formally with, you know, like a word processing or text in like Photoshop or Illustrator, or they could be done all on one sheet of paper and then just made from some single design that you come up with. You could go straight to Staples and Xerox them that way, or you would take a photo. There again, we're going to talk about how do you get a handmade zine like that into a digital format in different ways. I think probably a little bit here, but the most simple, direct way would be to put it through a scanner if you had a scanner, or to make an actual JPEG file that you could then trim to exactly the edge of the paper and then save as a PDF, or taking a photo of it and then again trimming it to just the exact edge of the paper so it keeps the ratio of 8.5 by 11, right? And then saving it as a JPEG or a PDF. There are different ways to go with the absolute simplest by making it by hand, but that would be the smartest way. So yeah, so we're talking about making a self-published miniature magazine in black and white and sharing it with everyone, and you get everyone else's too. Yeah.
Cristina, can I interject one thing?
Yeah, sure.
That was a wonderful description just there. I just want to interject that it's what we're talking about is always one single piece of letter-sized paper.
Correct.
Because that's, and that the original simplest way to reproduce them is to take the original to a copier.
Yeah.
And make the copies straight from the original. So you don't have to do any scanning, no Photoshop, nothing. Just take it and set it on the copier and print it out as many as you need.
Yeah.
And that's where the way that the original ones were done. That's all.
Absolutely. But for our purposes, we need it to be a PDF. So that adds a level of complexity to it. That's a little bit more. It's not super complicated, but some people do have, you know, access issues. Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of us have a cell phone that can take a decent straight picture of something simple in a high enough resolution. And worst case scenario, take a picture with your cell phone, send it to me, and I'll make your PDF, because it's super easy for me to do it because I have everything I need. right? So that would be the easiest option if you are technically challenged or don't have access to a scanner or an easier way to do it. Okay. So when you say self-publishing, people think like, ooh, it must be fancy. But the idea is fancy, not the execution, right? So some of the best, I think, in my mind, zines are not as formally thought out and crazily, precise. Some of them are more raw and have kind of a little more of a do-it-yourself feel to it, which I think is an aesthetic that overall zines seem to lean into, right? Yeah. Okay, so you have these blog posts. Let's see, well, there's another blog post here. Yeah, this is the 2021. So Susan Marsh did a very simple slipcase, and I like it a lot. It fits it snugly. It works really well. We used it again with a different design for this past year as well. You can put the year on it and a little bit more information. I thought it just was really great. It fits on one 8.5 by 11. So again, you could go to Staples and get one of those glossy heavyweight sheets printed for very little, for like less than like $1.20 or something like that. And it makes a really shiny, dense kind of ink, and it folds really nicely. And the instructions and the cut lines and the fold lines are all marked on it. So it's a nice template to be able to do, or just continue with the idea of digital swapping, which I think is great. Yeah. Last year I made a bunch of them too. I just made, and when I ran into people and I just gave people that needed them. I was going to send them like I did the first year. I mailed people the red pillow boxes, but that ended up being quite a bit of money for NEBA. So if I can hand it to you instead, that's an easier thing for NEBA. Yeah. So again, we had like 15 to 18 on average each year. I'd love to get the number up. I'd love to see it grow. It's staying the same. It's not really expanding yet. And I'm hoping this year that we get a few more people, because it sure is cool to have a neat Zine Swap set, We always do one of the show and tells devoted to the results in the fall every year. And I record these, and they're on our site, on the YouTube channel of NEBA's YouTube channel, and embedded in these posts, so you can get to them easy. They're fascinating. To hear the backstories on some of these zines is really actually kind of cool. I think that they're also some of the most attended of our Zooms over the years, that people really show up to hear about all the zines, which is nice. Yeah, so this is giving you some of the images of the whole sets and letting you get a look a little bit at the aesthetic of the way I shoot everything. Let me go back to that one. This one gives you a good look at all the different kind of range of ways people did things. So like Anya's Pakistani spice bag is like an educational do-it-yourself zine. These are like the typical kind of genres that you see. Like if you collect zines, I collect them. You probably are gonna find like areas of interest that you really get excited about. There are people that do illustrations. There are people that love their cats. There's a huge cat zine and pet zine area. The cyanotype one here is a really great, not only history, but it gives you really great instructions for how to do cyanotypes. That was Susan's. Here is the birthday, the 90th birthday. Here's Judy's. I was talking about seeing her boyfriend and Joel in the golf cart. This is her her amazing 90th birthday, all the different things they did during the day. Just really interesting ideas that people come up with. Full range of stuff. I have a thematic series called Steps to Abstraction. I'll show you a little more images of that. So I do one of those every year. So it's kind of an ongoing. I usually do two, one new one, and they're all new, but like one new idea and one of the steps. This is the look of typically what I do for our Zine Swap show and tell. Here's last year's series.
I really want to see this.
Yeah. You can see the YouTube videos of all of those show and tells. Here is last year's box. Susan did such a cute job. Isn't it super cute? I just love it. It feels really good because of all the ink when you, especially, not to be like a cheerleader for Staples, but their Xeroxing with that ink makes it really super dense and shiny, and it just feels really good in your hands. Yeah. So you can see again, what a crazy range. And again, like, we're getting some series action. So Carolyn has continued showing us more about lovely Waylon and her kitty cat. Yeah. Lots of fun, ongoing kind of projects that people have. That should have Nancer spotlighted. Would you like
Okay.
to share a little about your fun zine?
Sure. I didn't quite know what we were doing today, so I did a PowerPoint on about 8 different structures that I'd done before, but obviously
Can we
that's not
look
what we're
through
doing now.
these and then we'll pop to your PowerPoint? How's that sound?
Sure.
Great.
So this was this was just a hand-drawn zine, and I started making something more elaborate because I hadn't gone to the first meeting. And then we got an email saying, no, it has to be in black and white, it has to be an ox plow, it can only be one-sided. And so this actually is the story of my trying to make a zine. So it's called The Last Word on Perfectionism. And so it's the story of me. That little character is kind of me. I missed the first zine project, but no problem. She'd made dozens before. One piece of paper presents so many possibilities. So here's me thinking what I'm going to do. But then many hours later, I built a prototype, watercolored the base tones. And so by this time, I know that it's all wrong, but I'm sort of kind of building up the narrative a little bit. And so I'm making it very complicated. And the turtle, who's sort of the observer and then will later become the wise character, is at this point is just going along asking questions. But seems to know me already more than me because he's already saying, uh-oh. So now you can go ahead and turn the page. And then so I'd have to start over with only 5 pages and less than a week left. Yikes, what do I do now? And so now you've got multiple turtles. What about a zine about how a turtle holds up the world? I don't know if you know, what really gave me the idea was there's a folk tale where a scientist or an old lady comes up to a scientist who's trying to explain how the world begins. And she says, well, I know how it is. He says, how? She says, well, a turtle holds up the world. And he's like rolling his eyes. And he says, well, what holds up the turtle? She says, another turtle. It's turtles all the way down. And so this perfectionism thing is kind of a play on that. So how about a turtle that holds up the world? And so the me character says, okay, what holds up the turtle? More turtles all the way down. So if you know the folktale, you know kind of a little bit where it's going. So I put my earbuds on and then began to design an even better zine than the previous, more elaborate one. And then this is sort of a joke, if you know this. I fear that One Moment in Time isn't the best theme song for this zine. Is the Turtles are saying that, which is this big song by Whitney Houston, in which she says, give me one moment in time, where she's going to do the most powerful thing in the world. And so it's a sort of a play on the kids. Well, the kid is me now, but the characters kind of over imagination and big drama. Okay, next. So now it has to be in black and white, but we had just seen, I think we'd just been in the big collaborative that Lori Moorhead was involved in, or not involved in, spearheaded really. And someone used a magnet, which is, not a magnet, it's just a focuser, which is just a little cardboard thing with a hole in the middle. So but you hold it and it allows you to focus on a page of a book or a piece of a postcard. So we'd just seen that and I'd never heard of that before. So this time I still have to do a small zine, but I decided I'll use a magnet so the readers will only focus on the good parts. And the turtle says, well, if colors aren't allowed, I'm pretty sure focusing tools and magnets are out of bounds also. So turtle's trying to constrain me. And then, but even the best parts are imperfect when you pay close attention. So now the turtles are again talking back to the original theme. It's imperfection all the way down. Every novel idea brings a raft of new imperfections. And the bottom one is saying, my head looks like a turkey, which is,
I love that part.
like a little illustration of imperfections. But there is a kind of seriousness underneath it, which is, if you're going to do novel things. And if you're inspired by creativity, you really have to be able to embrace imperfection, because you're always doing something you haven't done before. So that's the more serious theme and learning that I got from it. So in other words, it's imperfectionists that hold up the world. The only people who know what they're doing are those who've already done it before. And then the turtle says, I sense a sequel. And the little one says, more free popcorn. Because it's sort of like got this movie motif. So there was a narrative, and it was sort of built around my original like catastrophe of like getting partway through it and realizing I'd have to start over. And then I have a son. And so in some ways the turtles play the role of the wiser children in any kind of children's story, you know, where the children actually are much wiser than the adult. And so that was the concept.
But she can't get rid of that no matter what.
Very cool. I am going to make you a co-host so that you can
Like a Zoom through time. So you know who I am. I'm a New England book artist, and these are part of the pages. So when originally I was in the zine collaborative that Lori was doing, I thought to myself, well, before I decide what I'm going to do on the memoirs, I'm going to figure out all the zines in the world. Well, it turned out that there were more than 43 different types. And so I started making them all, and that was kind of crazy. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to make, because I was going to do all the templates, even though we were restricted to the size that we are now, which is basically 2 3/4 by 4.5 panels. And so then I said, this is going to go on too crazy. I'm going to run out of time. So I'll just do the ones that Lori was doing plus a few extras. So I made 2. If anyone is interested, I could. Obviously, they're yucky to look at, but each color is a separate structure. The one on the bottom that says original is the Axplow that we're doing, and then there's a bunch of others that Lori did, and then there's a couple of others. And Susan Marsh and I taught these. Well, I did the first session. She wasn't here for this part, but in a library group with non-book artists, although we had taken a book artist course together. And in an hour, they did all the structures. So they're really quite easy once you get going. So this was one of the ones that I made in the Lori Moore thing, which was a teacut. And the reason that I picked it, one of the things I love about zines is how the structure can be interactive, because you can fold it different ways, especially if you have a different structure. And then you can also have text, and you can also have visuals. And I had to figure out the structure based on where I wanted the double spreads to be. And also if there's a surprise element, where you want to turn the page. So there's the triple cut that was that zine. And then here it is all laid out. And there it is, sort of standing up. And then the other one I did was called My Secret Mentor, and that had a different cut. And that the mentor, in the beginning, I wanted to make it, first of all, not tell right away who the mentor was. And then that picture on the bottom is me, and the mentor, when she was about 3 years older than that, is the big picture. And so I had the first part where I was talking about, you know, my own childhood and why I needed a mentor. And then it went on for a little while, but you can't go on too long because she's a famous person without knowing who it was. So these 2 pages were, so that was the cover. And then these 2 pages were together. And by the time you got past this first spread, you were going to know. And so here is
definitely a doppelganger thing going on when you were younger. You guys look so much alike. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, not exactly a doppelganger, but kind of a model, because she's very hardworking. And so then the next thing was, how do I distinguish between when she's talking? You know, obviously everybody knows this is Julie Andrews, and when I'm talking. And so I put her, when she's talking, it's in italics, and when I'm talking, talking, you know, is coming out of interviews that she did. I'm not talking to her directly. And then mine is the regular text. So that was the concept. And again, it goes through, and it sort of goes through her life, and then it ends actually with my reconciliation with my mother. My mother had, I think some of you know this, my mother had a condition where she had no imagination. So she couldn't make mental images, which meant she had no past and she had no future. And it wasn't, the science didn't understand what it was, and I'm like very imaginative. So she thought I was making everything up, and I thought, not that she was stupid exactly, but that she just was totally non-supportive. So anyway, so the next one is this is our zine. This is the ox plow. And I had done a picture of a dog a while ago that was going through this corn poke thing when I was visiting Vermont. And I had this series, but I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then it kind of worked out really well once I saw the quote, which is curiosity is a hunger caused by a gap in knowledge. So that's that one. And then this one is a little bit of a different structure. I'll go really fast here. A friend of mine's grandmother was going into assisted living, and she said, she has an old manual typewriter. Does anyone want it? And I said, sure, I'll take it. I could photograph it and use it for something. And then she brought it in. It was like gold. And I thought, a gold typewriter. Wow, that's amazing. So I decided to make her a zine as a thank you note. And so the zine is, it's sort of a little bit like that perfectionism thing. So the character is the gold typewriter, and this is done on Photoshop. So it starts with, my writer and I would like to start our day with a little exercise. So I photoshopped it into a tennis court. And then after we finish our morning exercise, my writer goes to the porta potty to change into her office attire. As you can see, I'm already in my office attire. So there's a humor thing that comes into it. And then I won't go through the whole thing, but as you can see, basically the typewriter shows up in each of the places. And then this one, what?
I love that one. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. I recently did a sort of a zine activity at a gallery opening last Thursday, and everybody really liked this one. It also has an interesting fold pattern. As you can see, when you have an alternative fold pattern, you've got to give directions to people, like close page and turn up. Page 13 is the bottom of that middle one.
Yeah.
So when they're not just going forward, you've got to tell them what to do. And then this one, I think this might be my last one. This one I recently did. My son is getting married in September, and I wanted to do a little bit of a favor for like FAVR, not like, like a souvenir favor, at his alternative bachelor party, which had both men and women. And so I did this little horizontal zine on basically Bachelor Cody takes off. So it starts, once there was a boy strong and sensitive with plenty of smarts who was kind to animals, and then it kind of continues on. I think probably the little thing is in the way of the others. But when I did this, what I wanted to do was, he is sensitive, but he's got two moms. So he's also very well, I wouldn't say he's concerned about his masculinity, but you can see it behind the consciousness there. So I wanted to kind of put those two together. And he dropped out of college, but he is very smart. So I wanted to keep playing also to something that wasn't overstated, but also was a very positive affirmation of him. And he is kind to animals, and that's not hidden. So that's the way it was. And then this one actually is the last one. This one is sort of hard to figure out what you're looking at, but I made this out of a poem that I had written when Cody was struggling to learn how to read in second grade. And so it's an interesting fold structure, which is interesting because it sort of tracks the difficulty with linear processing. And so all the pictures are his. I had all these pictures I didn't know what to do with. He didn't want them. And then I made up the poem that sort of describes this colloquy that he and I had, when I would say, well, have you checked your work? And he would say, or how do you check your work? And he had this idea that there was a little guy that was sitting on his shoulder that was checking his work. And when the little guy felt like he'd had enough, then Cody was finished checking his work. And then I'd say, but this isn't checked. And he'd say, well, the little guy got distracted because he had all these animals running around. So that's essentially what the poem is about. Okay, I think that's good enough. And thank you. So I'm going to stop my sharing. And again, if anyone, one more thing I guess I'll show really quickly is I put Susan Marsh and I did a quick little container for the library, as well as showed them the slipcase that Susan had made, which I think is online. So now I have my templates in it, but it's very fast to make. But if you have more than 15, it's tough. It becomes too bulky. So if you have like 15 to 18, it'll work fine. But if Cristina gets what she wants and has 50 people participating,
Well, I
then
doubt
that's
it'll
not
be
really a
50,
good
but
structure.
anything more than what we've had in the past is what my goal is. I have a realistic goal, yeah. But that would be cool if we get a almost a commitment for the structure. Very cool. Thank you so much. Love that. Okay,
I'm done.
I'm gonna reclaim the host. Excellent. I'm gonna go back to my desktop and I'm gonna move on. Marie, would you like to turn? You're up next. Would you like
Yep.
to turn
Why don't
on?
we go ahead and screen share, because I also did a PowerPoint presentation.
So would you rather just do that, or do you want me to do a quick view of the zines that you've made? Which would you, or both? We could do both.
Can we do both?
Yeah, let's do both.
All right. So this was the first zine that I made ever, and it was the first one for the first year of our Zine Swaps. And because the origin of zines largely has to do with protest, and I was, as I still am, very upset about Trump. Mine was all about Trump and what his name originally meant and what it came to mean over the centuries, the word Trump. So that's what this is about. It's a double-sided zine, so we can go through that. You can see the back of it on the bottom of the on the zine.
So different angles of view, basically here.
Yeah. Those are different angles of the view. And what I did basically was I took the each letter of his name what I did was I took the different Latin words, synonyms for the word Trump, and I included the first letter of each of the words, and then I define the words. So one of the words that is a synonym with Trump is in Latin is flatus, which means flatulence or blowing. So I arranged the title of the word so that the first letter is consistent with the title of the zine. Let's go to the next one. And so you can see here, asinus means ass or fool, and you can see that the shape of the design on that page is like an A for asinus. Fatus, the same thing. Babulus, babbler. Machinator, a schemer or a conspirator. And I use Latin because that's the language of the fallen Roman Empire, which is what I think is happening with the US today. We're analogous to the falling Roman Empire. So that was my first zine.
I liked your addition of like colophon style of the backing to really kind of give the fonts and the sizes and really kind of give a little bit more like a colophon feel to your back. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
The back side had a nice graphic.
It was kind of the stars and stripes of the flag, but in disarray. So you just see a bunch of lines and stripes.
Let me get to the front cover. I think that some of these are out of sequence. So here we go.
Okay, so this one is the one I did last year, and this one is about the classified document scandal. And I called it Your Secrets Are Safe with Me. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, these seem like they're out of
No, that's
these are out of order,
that's
aren't they?
not part
Yeah,
of
they're
it.
out of order. My apologies.
That's
see.
okay.
This is right. Here we go.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. So basically, I introduce what the topic is, who done it, what happened, why, etc. And then on the right, I have this graphic of all the boxes that they found in disarray. And then, the types of documents that were planted, that were stolen, and the excuses that he made. And one of the things he said is, but they're only news clippings. Oops, and uh-oh, spilled beans. He's always making excuses for himself. Always, always, always.
I love that one.
And then the back is the colophon.
love how crazy you go with the fonts. Really nice, honey.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have to go back up because these.
No,
I have a
because that
question.
one, that's the one, the other one is the topic of my little PowerPoint.
Okay,
So you just have to screen share.
okay, so you don't want to show it all the different angles of this one?
No, I think I have a
Okay.
few angles that will work.
Okay, cool, no
But
worries.
that's a good picture though.
Yeah, the pictures turned out well, yeah. I like the gray paper with it. Okay, let me make you a host so that you can screen share.
Okay.
Excellent, excellent.
All right. So Cristina asked me to talk about the different, because what I told Cristina is that the zine format, in a way, you know, did not accomplish for me what I wanted to accomplish with my ideas. And so that I had used the info and the imagery that I developed in the zines in order to create different types of structures. And so she wanted me to talk about that. So this presentation deals with one zine and how it went from the zine format to an accordion format to a very simplified codex. So someone was asking about what is a zine. We've already gone over that. Here's just another definition. Basically mine, I like to make mine double-sided. So the one on the left is the front, the one on the right is the back. And my pictures aren't nearly as good as Cristina's of my zine. The one I'm showing you is called the Havana Syndrome, a Cuban conundrum, and you can see what it looks like in the front, and then the pages in the front. But then if you reverse it, the back has the part of the title of the zine. So this is the front, and one of the things that I have problems with is folding the pages so that they're precise. That's an art that I haven't learned with photocopy paper and the ox plow format. That's something that I need to work on. But
I'm going to pause you for just a quick second. So
yeah.
when I mentioned that Lori's structure puts page 1 in a different place to make it fold differently a little bit, it helps with what you see as that right edge. So in this photo, you can see the unevenness at the bottom.
Yep, that's why I showed that slide. Yep.
In her, with the rearrangement, you'll have an easier time with the folding. So we will be changing the way our template layout's going to be to accommodate it, because it is a better way. It's just changing where that first panel is, really.
Okay.
So it'll help with what you're concerned with.
Oh,
And-
good. That'll make a big difference.
This is Lori, and I want to interject one other thing. Because the paper has thickness, even though it seems like it's almost negligible if you're using just regular like 20-pound paper, you're ending up with it being I think ultimately like 8 sheets thick. It's either 4 or 8. I'm trying to remember the math, but anyway, you're never going to get perfectly crisp folds and edges on anything. And if you use, for instance, 28-pound paper, there's going to be a little bit more of a gap at the corners. Just know it and live with it. It's never.
You'll get better. You'll get better.
Well,
And it's a zine.
Yeah, it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect because the paper has thickness to it.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And that's just know it and love it.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Well,
Just
that's
know,
a great bit of wisdom.
Version. Yeah.
you know, it's never going to be perfect, and just breathe and get through it.
Yeah.
It's the
Well,
content,
life is
not
like
the
that, so-
container.
Yeah,
That's
it's the content.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that bit of wisdom. All right, so my second version was an accordion structure, which basically the imagery and text remain the same. The only thing that I did was I elongated the proportions a little bit, and I added these interrupted lines to help me with the folding. And what wound up happening is that it actually became a really good design element. And the other thing that I did with with this format is that I made the images from the quote unquote front and back continuous, so that the background, the back side of this at the moment is plain. I may decide at a later time to rework it, but right now it's all one, you know, one kind of view of all of the information. And one of the things that I liked about this is that I actually gave it covers with little quote unquote book cloth. This is actually crane paper and ribbon for the closure. So I wanted to play with that, with those kinds of decorative elements. And you can see here the interrupted lines and, you know, how they actually go with the design of the paper, which was a
Nice.
nice surprise.
Very nice. Yeah.
Now, the last piece I want to show you is I almost hesitate to call it codex because it's so much smaller than a regular codex, but a codex is basically the kind of format that we use in modern books. And you're looking at a slide on the top two slides, and these two slides show you what a codex can look like opened and closed. And the way that I envision this one, and I don't, does everybody here know what the Havana syndrome is?
Yes.
Tell us.
Okay, very quickly, the Havana syndrome started in, well, actually, I'll just read to you this little thing and that'll fill in these gaps. But basically, the way I'm interpreting this particular book is as a kind of glossy 9x12 structure in which I've added new iconography, I've added color and a different kind of paper. This is going to be a glossy paper. The color that I added is so that it evokes kind of the tropical heat and sultriness of the island, but it also I'd also tried to evoke the malaise that is attendant with the Havana syndrome. Let me just go to this and I'll just read it to you quickly. The Havana syndrome, a bizarre, mysterious malady, first appeared in Cuba in 2016, where in the U.S. Embassy, Hotel Nacional and Hotel Capri, which was designed by my dad in the 1950s. The targets were mostly U.S. Intelligence officers, diplomats, and their families. The symptoms have been reported as horrifying physical and cognitive problems. The cause is unknown. Is it mass hysteria, surreptitious tonic attacks, directed microwaves? The culprits, again, the Cubans, the Chinese, the Russians, nobody? We just don't know. And every continent but Antarctica has been affected. U.S. cases have been reported in Virginia near the White House. Alarmingly, the attacks have been accelerating, and despite years of global scientific and intelligent efforts, it remains a cloak and dagger mystery right out of a Cold War playbook, existing in a liminal space between a 1950s low-budget sci-fi movie, a sinister spy thriller, and a futuristic hellscape. There was a program very recently done about the Havana syndrome in which scientists concluded that they can't find a cause. They just can't find it, and that all of these things that people have reported are either mass hysteria, it's all in their heads. I don't think it's mass hysteria, but at any rate. So this is the cover. Then this is the second part of the title, Conundrum. And then this is page number 1, in which I use these kind of dancing cigars as a kind of leitmotif that I repeat throughout the little publication. And here's where it happened, you know, the embassy, the Hotel Nacional, and my family's hotel, the Hotel Capri. And then these are the kinds of symptoms that have been reported, you know, hearing loss, mental fog, dizziness, loud noises, vision problems. And then on the right, I put kind of a colorful Spanish idioms like ¿Qué carajo pasa? Algo misterioso. Un arroz con mango. Basically, these are all phrases that refer to the fact that this is a mess, that this is a mystery, and what the hell is going on.
Rice with mango.
Yeah. Arroz con mango means it's a mess.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, I tried to do with the color, I tried for the color to kind of magnify the message. And on the left, we have, you know, the design that I made relating to who done it. And on the right, you know, one of the causes, which is to me the most ridiculous one, that was posited that it was a bunch of cicadas chirping. Another one was directed microwaves.
That's a nice graphic. Yeah.
Thank you. And then this is the colophon, repeating again the same motif of the dancing cigars. And then the back, actually, this is not, oops, sorry. The back is not showing. Okay, here we go. The back, you can see the title once again echoed here. And then it's basically, all of this is basically a distorted intro that you saw at the beginning of the piece.
Mm.
So that's basically what I did with the 3 different kinds of formats that I came up with.
Very good, very nice. So I really thought it was important to share with the group the idea that you can go, and when Carole McNamee talks in a few minutes, she'll be going in the opposite direction. So going from an artist book to the zine, but the idea of going from the zine to a more formal approach to bookmaking. So the idea that this kind of zine play that we're going to be doing goes in both directions and could be kind of an interesting component, like a visual journal could be, even for people in their art process moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the repeating cigar dancing cigars too. Yeah, very nice.
Thanks.
Well
All right.
done. It's really
Thank
exciting.
you.
Okay, I'm going to reclaim host. Let's just hit some questions. Anybody have any questions for Marie or for Nancer? Because I didn't do this at that point. Nope. Okay. I am going to make sure that Carole is going to be spotlighted. Okay. So tell us Carole, tell us a little bit about a bibliophobia as an artwork, as an artist book first, and then we'll talk about how you transferred it and made it into zine.
Okay, well, I was going, the beginnings of this started when I was going out to dinner with my husband, and we were at a tavern, and there was a sign when you went into the tavern that said senosilicophobia, and that is a fear of an empty glass. And I just chuckled, and I thought, okay, and I took a photograph of it, and I thought, I don't want to lose that. Sometime I will do something with it. Well, what happened is I went home and I started looking at funny phobias, and as soon as I saw a bibliophobia, it was like, okay, I got to do something with this, and because it sort of fit our family. I mean, people would read the phone book if they couldn't find anything else to read. You know, one of my kids would reread books multiple times. So anyway, a bibliophobia just really struck a chord. And then I started playing around with funny words. And I thought I could make give some people something to read that might be somewhat amusing. And that was the origins of a bibliophobia. And I decided a flag book made sense because each of these funny words could, you know, excuse me, be one of the flags. So that's where that started. And then when the zine project came up, I sort of went, well, you know, I have words I didn't put in the flag book. Maybe I can put some in a bibliophobia, but I played around with it a little bit. I think there's a fair amount of overlap. And I have to say, I did it in Microsoft Word, and I hated working with Word to make this. But
Can
so
I interrupt you a second, Carol?
Sure.
That's the first zine that I made was a nightmare on Word. I mean, it was horrible. And as a result of that, I learned the basics of Adobe Illustrator, and that's made my life infinitely easier. But I learned it specifically in order to be able to make zines with text. So I'm just throwing it out there.
yeah, I understand why you did that.
You're actually better off just cutting out your images and gluing them to an 8.5 by 11.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe, but then you get little lines when you,
Yeah, it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
Word is not a design tool.
Right.
no kidding.
Yeah. They
Um,
make a matte white cover tape that you can actually collage. Like if you have white pieces on white paper with the edges are white, there's this matte white tape that you can buy to do like stick them down, and you won't have any lines. It's sort of like a correct type. It's sold
Yeah.
at Staples. It's a little thin matte white tape.
Well, the
And
truth is, I finally have
works
figured
great.
out how to do it.
Brilliant.
And then I made a whole bunch of zines with my grandchildren's artwork, which I gave them for Christmas presents. Their moms sent me digital images. One of them was just a whole series of axolotls, little sort of almost transparent sea creatures, which my grandson liked to draw. Anyway, so that's where I went with zines. And so that is, as Gail, Cristina said, that's an example of going from an artist book to a zine. And
I liked your illustration addition to give this a little something extra. They aren't super complicated, but they cover exactly what they need to.
yeah,
Just make it more of an interesting visual than just pure text.
yes,
Yeah, I love this one.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, and one of the other things that I think that first year we noticed that more than half the people forgot to sign or put their name. And we also want to make sure this year that if you wanted to add a NEBA logo, that you would have a black and white digital, like little teeny digital file to be able to add if you wanted to add a NEBA logo on yours. I don't always put the NEBA logo, but I do like to write NEBA Zine Swap in the year to make sure I can remember which year it was, because if we keep doing this, we're going to get confused, right? Yeah. Lovely. I like the idea of white space, because when you have a fold that's not working 100% mint, because every time you print one of these PDFs, depending on where you print it at, it's going to be a little teeny bit different place on the sheet of paper, right? So having blank white areas anywhere near the edges and the folds make it a little bit more flexible in how it adjusts to all these different printers.
you know, I can't tell you how many times I printed this out to make sure that everything was centered in exactly the right place.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. I'm gonna go into my ones that I do that are like serial, I guess is how you could say it. I'm gonna spotlight me now. Hopefully I did that right.
Can I also interject something about
Yeah.
going artist book to zine?
Okay.
Because I've been doing that as well. I love, you know, when we started making the zines for this most recent project, I realized I have all these books that you know, they sit in my studio. They're personal to me. I'm not going to sell them. And so people don't see them. And, but when I was able to convert them into zines, then I'm able to just give them out to people because it's one piece of paper. And people go,
Yeah.
really, you're giving me these? I'm like, yes, it is one piece of paper. And, you know, but now it's my chance to have people read my books. And I love that aspect of it. And I'm looking more and more of my books, trying to figure out, I mean, some just like readily led themselves to becoming a zine, but especially now that I know all the different ways and how you can have up to 16 faces, 16 pages, including front and back cover, it's like I'm realizing, oh, some that I thought would be impossible could be possible. I'll just have to think a little bit harder about how to do it. But yeah, I love this idea of turning existing artist books into a zine and therefore making them easy to distribute.
It
Fantastic.
makes them very accessible.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is the whole part of, I think, the spirit of zines in the first place.
Right.
And it's also part of why NEBA is, once we get this money from the grant in July, hopefully, we can start doing some of the outreach ideas of spreading the zine love at more zine festivals, at events where a member could throw like an hour and a half long library zine workshop for teens and young adults or anyone, or however you want to do. I think that's kind of going to be part of how we outreach is via zines, because I think it's a very effective, contemporary, fun, inexpensive, just a really, it hits on all cylinders. So I'm thrilled that everybody seems to be loving zines these days.
Yeah, Christine, I want to say one more thing to pick up on what both you and Lori are saying, which is I love the generosity factor of it, because sort of like what Lori's saying, that it may take a long time to make the first one, but then after that, it's really fast. And people are so appreciative when you give them something which they realize has been composed. And the other generosity aspect of it, I noticed that when Susan and I were working on their zine workshops, especially the first one, that people, once they learned how to make a structure or two, they did whatever they did in the workshop. But then the next time when they were doing the container, they would all come back with stories about how they had made 7 more in the 3 weeks in between. And so they had spread what they had learned out off into their grandchildren or their families or their school students or whatever. So it really spreads fast. So that's what I really like about it.
I'm excited. We're going to have a little contagion of zine actions coming out from NEBA. It's like a center cord is spreading.
Could I say something? This is Retta.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I was just going to double both things. One, I also got into like a 3-day running gunfight with my printer to make it do what I wanted it to do. And I was so frustrated and irritated. Finally got it all to do what I wanted. But the other thing was, yes, I'm also going from making books to the zine as a way to have it be much less pressure on me. It's much simpler. There's a lot less anxiety about what you're doing, and you can give it away, which is part of also very much what I love about it. And so, yes, it's just, and I've started to try to think of it as an illustrated blog. That's all it is in a way.
Yeah, that's why I was referencing the idea of thinking of it as potentially a visual journal. Like you can just make some ideas and spit them out and create a little quick zine out of just something that could eventually, if you really get excited, turn into a bigger project or something else. Or it could be like you're looking here at Steps to Abstraction. I had a wonderful mentor teacher way back that gave me literally these steps to go through to take from a literal object. Like this is a black and white photo. So I take a photo of something in black and white and put it on the cover. And my big zine that's 5x5 hand stitched with paste paper covers is called Vajunion. So I'm calling this the Vajunion edition. This is a desiccated slice of onion as the picture. and then you go through the steps. So I have this formatted as a blank template with my steps and all the text. And every year I pick something new to be the addition, right? So here you're looking at the steps. So number one, start with a detailed line drawing from the photo, right? You're doing this from the photo. Number two is redraw with less shapes, less detail, and creating bigger shapes. This is the first one I did, so I don't think my shifts in this particular double page spreader is that radically different. And I'm doing Sharpie drawings quickly, just quickly having some fun. Number three, zoom in on one area. Number four, which is a very effective tool for abstraction, straight lines become curves, curved lines become straight. Okay, so this is the teacher and me combined with the feminist secret vagina artist that I am, and Loud and Proud. This is all this series is. It's like a joke. So every year I do some other thing that is very boob or feminist looking in some way, shape, or form. And no matter what I do to it, it still in the end starts looking more like so by the time I'm not really abstracting it exactly, it's kind of a joke. But anyway, so this is one of my favorite zines that I love to do one every year. This year, for this year's swap, is a slice of pepperoni pizza. So that should be a good one. It's the pizza edition. And it becomes really strange at the end. So I've got this teeny little NEBA logo in black and white, and then I just write a little info on it. I think it's good to put your info on it. Put the year on it. You don't necessarily have to. Another addition, like ones that I do with the same formatting, again, I just have to bring in a little content and put it in its right spot. And Merkin is in the illustrated guide series. My other one for this year that I'm doing is Scat, an illustrated guide. I started it last year and never finished it. So I'm going to do Scat, which is like scat music, a scat fish, and animal poo. There's a whole lot of different things that are scat. So this is explaining what Merkins are. Excuse me, Merkins, what Merkins are. They're pubic hair pieces. And I give you a little bit of the history, so it's funny. And it's a real learning tool. So you're going to get a lot of experience, some interesting stuff. So it shows you a little bit about my sense of humor and some of my, again, Sharpie illustrations. Merchandise, merch for Merkin lovers. This is probably my most bought zine at any of my festivals. Whenever I show these, people love Merkin. The last little image on Merkin is some beard trimmings from my husband's face that I made into like a little bush and photographed it. Here is last year's Steps to Abstraction, which was the light bulb edition. And just here's, I think, a couple spreads of, again, it's plug and chug. So how can you get a consistent look or create a series and have less time for the actual hard part, which is the formatting and getting it in order so that it really folds easily every single time? I hardly have to adjust this at all. I just plug and chug into the same original template that I made. And my templates are in Photoshop, but some people like Illustrator. This one is one that I made last year too, I think, or it might have been the year before. I'm drawing a blank. I grow shiitake mushrooms, and I love the radial lines and the eye reference. It could be an eye, it could be all these different kind of sensei eyelashes. So it's mixed media, and then I basically just do a scan of it. So it's got image transfers, it's got Sumi inks, ballpoint pen, marbling. It's just a hot mess of different stuff. It's two-sided because the marker bled through, right? And I just made sure to scan the backside too, so that the original was with bleed through. And then I took it after the scans and I added my text. I love a two-sided concept because I like to present these in ways other than just merely as a book structure. So I love it if like the 4 panels in the middle that you see somehow interplay with other things. Here's one that's two-sided that was done in a children's class, and then I added the text in after I scanned it. I took black paper with a white marker, and then I took it and scanned it and then reversed it so that it became a dialogue potentially about any kind of thing you want to think of as a binary. It could be race relations, it could be two different points of view on something, two different sides of an argument, night versus day. I mean, there's a whole lot of implications of doing a negative of something, right? So that's what this one is. It was just doodles. It took me like an hour with a white Sharpie on black paper. Other ideas that I have are putting in a background that you then fold up and see what happens on the pages. And it's more of a like, let's just see what the hell happens. So I take imagery from my mixed media world and prints and things and put them either right on the glass at Staples and just, you know, bang out like 20 copies of something I like the look of, and you can change the contrast range. And then maybe take Sharpies to them and make them like a coloring book zine where you let people just color them. So these are some imagery, some of the imagery that I've played with before that I found very effective. Having the idea that it's got a fold that goes right down the middle horizontally and then the two sides happen kind of gives you some ideas of ways you could take imagery that has no content whatsoever and just make it be the background of something you work into. Yeah. Just simple, straightforward ideas of ways you could take anything and make it into a zine background. This has obviously the more white areas you have, the more areas to work into you'll have. Just simple textures, simple colors, lines, patterns can be really effective for a great way to jumpstart a zine idea. I like to take pictures around when I'm marbling, like that's some goo that was on a piece of paper, but that's some cool, that could be a cool start to an interesting zine, right?
Very.
So opening your mind up to either going to Staples as a starting point, using Staples as a creative tool, to thinking about, does it have to have some kind of earth-shattering protest message? No, it doesn't. I think it might be fun if you're new to the zine world to do some that are abstract and just about pattern and texture, fold them up, let them be however they fold up, right? And then look at them for a while and see, like, do you feel like there's something you could lean into to add to it? And that to me would be a great way to teach. And that's with the kids, because seeing a blank white piece of paper can be a real, you know, stop sign for people. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, what do I do? But just this text, having some texture can just be fascinating. Plus, it's fun to take things that you've already made or like a waste print that you didn't find value in and see it in a new way and turn it into something, right? We all have tons of this kind of stuff laying around. And I think if you shift it into black and white in your head, you know what I mean, and see it that way instead, that it might trigger some kind of interesting outcome. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to gallery. We've been talking for a while. We're at an hour and a half. So I think we've gotten some great ideas. I love all the work that we've gotten. And I love sometimes Gail is here. So Samita, I'm going to just have to say, one of my most simplest zines I've ever put in my collection was Blame. I mean, almost nothing on those pages, but holy cow.
Thank you.
That is some powerful business.
Thank you.
Blame zine. It's just very few, very simple, very few words, but wow. You know, so I'm thinking that if you have anxiety, come up with some simplistic, simple thing that you think is going to be the best, because that usually overcomplicating it can be very, very interesting. It could be trouble, but it could be interesting too. Who knows? It could be both. I did forget to notice Nancer's idea of the two dialogues, which I've seen now in two of her works, where she's creating in the mentor with The Hills Are Live. I just drew a blank. Julie Andrews. It was the italic versus not italic, and in the imperfection with the turtles, it was like a line that went across the top. So it was visibly like two things. And I just really like the idea that you can somehow feel that it's a dialogue happening. Yeah. Nice. Sarah Marie Botero, who is one of our members, she did a bunch with, I think she did 2 of the zines. She's done 2 of the Girl Scout. We've had several Girl Scouts now. We've done the Girl Scout troops 3 times so far, so we've seen how they zine a little bit. She did 2 zine interactions, one with the recent one, and then I did one with her with the kids in Dorchester or South Boston. It was South Boston, Southie. Just really interesting because she's working with an inmate named Spoon. Okay, so Spoons of Wisdom was her zine from last year, and it has a dialogue structure between the 2 of them as well. So she co-writes with Spoon from jail and goes and visits him and makes zines with this guy. So cool. I loved her Spoons of Wisdom. It was really, really nicely done. So the idea of the dialogue or some kind of, again, the 2-sided concept could be also seen as a dialogue as well. So interesting, just interesting ideas there. Who else wants to chime in on some kind of interesting way to think about designing that they want to share? And we'll head out. Anybody got ideas? Carolyn, are we going to see Waylon again?
You bet.
Excellent. Kat, are we going to see another, Susan, do you have another family pet to share? Another tale of a dog, a beloved dog?
No, I'm not going to do another dog this time. That was a really homage to a wonderful dog who died of old age.
Nice.
And right now I've got one that's right on the cusp, but she's still with us. And then a
Is
young.
that the photo that we were looking at?
Yes, that's Peggy. That's the 14-year-old.
Excellent. Excellent.
She's hanging in there. She's the queen of the house. So no, I'm not going to do another dog. I'm not sure. But I did like some of the idea of your backgrounds there.
Yeah.
Some photographs.
It's a nice way to start. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to know if Marie's going to do a sequel on the documents one, and this time show the toilet.
Absolutely. You know it.
Did
I'm
you?
sorry, I missed when is this all due? What?
We try to get the PDFs to me on September the 15th, so you have plenty of time to work on it. You'll be bugged by me via email a couple of times, probably, so you'll hear more about it. I would love to do maybe an additional, I don't know if we're going to call it a show and tell, but maybe a mixer with Susan and Nancer to maybe talk about some of these other structures. And I don't know if you guys would be willing to do like an hour or sometime in like July or August. And we can.
Like in real life?
Yeah, like a real Zoom, like you guys actually, you know.
Oh, a Zoom. Oh, well, if there's
Like
a
a
Zoom,
NEBA
Lori
mixer
should be
Zoom?
invited
Yeah.
as well. If
Yeah.
it's by Zoom, Lori should be invited as well, because she also
Yeah.
taught a whole bunch of structures.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, but that could be fun to do. I'm sure our members would probably enjoy hearing more about those other structures. We could do an in-person day where we make a bunch of do a bunch of crazy folding. I mean, if your people at the library did, well, you said 14 in an hour, I'm sure we could do that.
No, they did 8 in an hour.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
We're a
and they
little more versed, so maybe we go faster. But yeah, I'm excited.
I think that would be a lot of fun if we could have a making session where
Yeah.
we make different kinds of zines, Nancer.
Yeah, it's not hard
Yeah.
because we have the templates. And also we can do it at the library, we can do it anywhere.
We could
really.
do it in person and videotape it and then just put it up on YouTube and skip the Zoom altogether and just make it that way. You know, I mean, I'm branching out and being more adventuresome in my video abilities lately. Yeah, so who knows? I'm going to be zining my little bahootie off with Lori and her project. I'm excited to do. So I contributed some ideas for themes of zines. And I have volunteered for the Boston Art Book Fair in November to teach. I did one of their zine workshops last year. I think I was the only person that taught last year. I did unstitch the mouth with a lotus structure and was like, what are you pissed about? And and I really hit them with some serious, like, get it out. And they did. There was an adult class. They made some really crazy, intensely powerful, I hate cancer, all kinds of crazy, like anti-gun stuff, hate speech, whatever. They were all like really good with the protesting and the screaming out their mouths at these structures we made that looked like mouths screaming. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, so let's make more zines.
More zines.
Ah, go for it,
Cristina,
zine.
Cristina,
Okay,
this
so
is-
Cristina, after you stop recording, I wanted to ask you and Carolyn something.
Okay.
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 Cristina,
Yes, darling.
Lori, am I officially signed up for the Zine Swap, or is there something I have to do to?
You don't have to do anything but turn it in to me before September 15th.
Okay.
We don't make people sign up. It's just, and so we don't really know unless people tell me and send it early. I don't know how many we have till September 15th.
Okay,
And then we decide on who's going to be in charge of packaging and what we might want to do for that. So, we don't really have to make a decision on that yet.
and
And
the
then
only
the show
requirement,
installation is November the 1st. So that gives us 6 weeks to have people be a little late.
so the only requirements are by September 15, PDF,
Yep.
Oxbow
Yep.
structure, and black and white.
And black and white. So it's one
That's it.
page,
Okay.
front only,
page.
front and back,
Okay,
in black and white. Yeah.
So,
Front
what
and
is
back
this,
or
what
not?
is the size? What?
Either
what's
way,
the-
it's
what-
8.5 by 11, and it could be one-sided or two.
okay.
Okay, 8.5
Okay, I have
by
another
11.
question,
Okay.
Christina, because of course I never want to do things the same way twice. I was thinking if I if I cut a hole, like a punch hole in it, so you'd see through to the next page, but that's not going to work if I'm PDFing it, because then somebody on your back end would have to cut the punch. So it needs to be no punch,
is
right?
do some kind of dotted line and little inside of whatever the punch was going to be, maybe make an instruction. I mean, other
Yeah,
than
but that seems like a
yeah.
lot of work on your end. Or-
Yeah, that would be harder to get done properly by the person who's completing it. But I guess you could, in theory, if
Okay.
you really had to, like create a window effect or
Just leave
something.
it up to the
Okay.
recipient, the final recipient, let them punch the holes.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, right.
You
Well,
put the
I'll consult my
instructions in.
turtles and see what they think of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's still an ox plow and all you're doing is really adding like a window cut, really,
Yeah.
and if you could have that be part of the PDF in the explanation, then people will get it. And when
If
I
it's
get
a
right
one-
and photograph it, then it'll be on the website as a guide for people so they can see what
Oh,
it's
right.
supposed to look like, Yeah.
If it's a one-sided piece, you could put the instructions and the cut line on the back.
Ooh, that's not
So
a bad
that
idea.
you've got your front integrity
Right.
without, cut.
That's
you-
an excellent idea, actually.
I can't believe you guys are encouraging me, but great.
You can, if it's
I
a
hate
big
to say
enough,
no.
if it's a big enough hole, you can have the dotted lines with the text on the inside of the circle
Yeah,
cut here.
So I'm just gonna say that the only, I think that the only way putting the cut lines on the back is gonna work is if you do a different structure than the oxbow. You've got an idea, Nancer, of how to have the cut lines on the back side of a one-sided oxbow zine?
well, it would be printed two-sided, but the only thing the back
No,
side
but-
would have is
But
the
what I'm
dotted
saying
lines.
is that if you cut, unless
Well, I had one.
you have to
So
be
you-
cutting through two sheets that backed up to each other to see something through it. Otherwise, you're just gonna see an empty backside, right?
No, because when you cut the hole, you'd have, if you're printing it double-sided, you would have either your text or your image on the other side, so you see it through the window.
Oh yeah, it would be double-sided.
Yeah, it'd have to be, right.
What,
Yeah, because she's right. And what would be in the hole would be white back of paper, unless you
That's
printed it the design on both sides. Yeah, I think putting the text inside the cut lines makes the most sense.